An Artist of the Floating World is the historical novel I didn't know I needed to read. An Artist of the Floating World is a book set in post-World War II Japan by Kazuo Ishiguro, following the diary entries of Masuji Ono, an artist who is basically trying to deal with the repercussions of war, a rapidly changing Japan, and his relationship with his children, his children-in-law, and his grandson. Honestly, I love Kazuo Ishiguro. He is a spectacular author, and frankly, I wasn't really expecting to enjoy this book as much as I did, though. I loved Never Let Me Go. I remember when I was studying English literature at school, I wrote part of my coursework. Coursework, for those of you who aren't English, it is, a written assignment that goes towards your grade. One of my coursework pieces was on Never Let Me Go. So I love Ishiguro's work. I didn't think I would enjoy this book as much as I did, because I thought, oh well, it's like diary entries, and it wasn't, it wasn't this massive, super high concept novel, kind of like Never Let Me Go was. High concept might not be the right word to use there, but it is simply following a man and his ever-changing perception of himself and understanding the perceptions of those around him. Obviously, if you don't know, Japan, World War II, committed uncountable atrocities, and sort of part of the post-war whitewashing of what they did is currently happening. Their cultural export, soft power, is really helping to mask that. But untold atrocities were committed by the Japanese. And even the Japanese people themselves, post-World War II, they felt like what their government was doing harmed the Japanese people. It's not quite the same as how Germany views themselves post-World War II, where Germany really considers, oh man, we messed up big time. There are large swathes of the Japanese population who believe and believed even that, oh, we messed up stuff with Japan. We sent these boys to die, which is true. It is true, but there isn't always that consideration of the things that happened abroad. What the character of Masuji Ono sort of believes is, well, what he was doing as an artist who was participating in, building up the cultural zeitgeist to be very pro-war, a very jingoistic artist, he believes himself to be. He believed that wasn't a wrong thing to do. He believed, we were at war, this is the kind of thing that happens at war, and people punishing themselves over this, which is something that is a big theme of this book. People who are realizing their wrongdoings are punishing themselves for it. He believes that is incorrect. He believes that isn't right to do. And I think a lot of this book is about him grappling with that, and it's about him grappling with the changing perceptions of young people in Japan as time went forward. It's set in about 1948 to 1950 Japan. His daughters, his sons-in-laws, his friends, his prospective sons-in-laws, they all have this very strong opinion of the war was wrong, the things we did in the war was wrong, and the things the war did to the Japanese people were wrong. And this is something that Masuji Ono has to deal with. And I personally think the reason it spoke to me so much is because we see that right now. Here in the UK, there is a generation of people who believe many of the atrocities committed by the British, whether it be the Empire, whether it be the Army, whether it be, the East India Company, they're like, well, that's what happened then. That's what happens at war. That's what happened at those time periods. Let's move on, get over it, no point thinking about it. When now the current generation, I hope and I pray for, are acknowledging, wait, no, we need to acknowledge this, we need to understand why it was wrong, and we need to rectify this. There's a lot of the things that Masuji Ono's younger compatriots believe or think. It also really touches on the atrocities at home, the censorship, the extreme violence against dissidents. Again, a cultural thing, more so here in the West, I believe, people who are generally anti-war are seen as, by certain aspects of society, especially older people in society, much like Masuji Ono is in the book, they are viewed as, wanton spirits, people who are wastes of space, people who do not support their country enough. And that's the kind of thinking that is being dealt with here in this book. It is in part about Masuji Ono learning to overcome that, but also it's about him accepting that maybe his thought process isn't the correct thought process for this point in time. I don't think Masuji Ono as a character fully comes to grips with the atrocities that were, committed by Japan in the wars, or he doesn't fully come to understand why people are so vehemently against it. He thinks, okay, yeah, I kind of get it, but I don't think that way. And I think, it is that very dichotomy of different generations. And I think it is something that is very pertinent today with how things are just all over the place, everywhere in the world. It's, this book really spoke to that to me. Okay, I spoke a lot about war. I spoke a lot about geopolitics there. A lot of it in very few breaths. I really should have taken far more breaths there. But the other aspect it touches on is creativity, about artistry. Ono is an artist, and it is him talking about how his art has evolved, going away from being an artist who was studying under another artist who, was well known for making paintings about geisha girls in the entertainment district, and how he wanted to use his art to influence the world, to influence Japan. Kind of the stuff he was trying to make, the jingoistic artistry during the war for the empire, to promote the empire. He has a friend who, kind of gets him into the political aspect of things. The one thing I feel maybe falls a little bit flat is the ending of the book, where spoilers now, so click away, like, subscribe, share the video if you don't want spoilers, but spoilers. It almost ends with him being forgiven to a degree, where his children say to him, well, his oldest daughter says to him, "Father, you weren't that important," which kind of, that kind of sucks to hear from your kid. But your part in the war wasn't that important. You didn't, obviously you made the art, which may have been pro-imperial propaganda, but it wasn't that bad, which I feel like it falls flat for me, because I'm like, no, you want that character to learn they've done something wrong. He does learn that, but he's kind of forgiven, and maybe what's being told there is the forgiveness of children, how your own children, your own family will forgive you and love you. That might be what Ishiguro's getting at here, how sometimes when parents do bad things, their kids will still love them. That might be what Ishiguro's going at there, but I felt like Ono was having such a good arc. He was getting to that point where he was learning his wrongdoings, but then his daughter and his friend are like, yeah, you did some bad stuff, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, wait a second, what? Because then it becomes a book about him being too self-critical and learning about, how to be properly self-critical and self-conscious. And I'm like, I feel like that character arc stops here, if this is the end. And I'm like, he is so close to reaching all the way here, but he's here. I don't know, I feel like there could have been more conflict at the very end there, but I'm not Kazuo Ishiguro, I'm not a world-renowned author, and that is a personal opinion. Other people might, prefer this idea of the generational differences and thoughts and the respect. Obviously, this is all set in a Japanese context, all set in a Japanese context in the 50s, so culturally it might be very different to now, because 70 years on, people might be more willing to be combatant with their parents or their ideas. But that's my takeaway from that. I think it's a really interesting book to tell you about generational differences in political thought. I also learned a lot about art, which I didn't know, which was nice. but that, you know, generational difference in art piece, in politics piece, I think is the big takeaway, and it's really reflective of our current society still, which is both, you know, interesting and also terrifying that that is still a thing we have to be mindful of. But hey, if you have read An Artist in the Floating World, please let me know what your favorite Ishiguro book is in the comments down below, and let me know what you think about these more political books. I guess all the books I read are very political or about family drama. Maybe I need to broaden my horizons a little bit. I tried sci-fi a few times. Let me know in the comments down below some books you want me to read and review, and remember to like, subscribe, share the video with a friend or family member, and hey, I hope you read a great book today.